Hi, everybody. I'm Lynsey Singleton, and I am the Career and Technical Student Organization Program Specialist at the Georgia Department of Education. I also serve as the Content Area Program Specialist for Government and Public Administration, and I'm excited to be with you. I am I am here today to talk about the program of work for the extended day grant that our state legislature provides us. And feel free if you have questions to raise your hand and we'll unmute you. And that way you can ask those questions as we're going. And then we'll just kind of check out the time and make a decision if we need to hold questions to the end at any point. But I do like to answer questions as I go, if that is needed, and be a little interactive. I first want to say that the big thing that I like to remind people of is that this is a grant. So it's the same as if in the field of education, if we had a friend that came to us and said, I I'm thinking about applying for this job, and we would say, well, how's it funded? And if they said it was grant funded, what would we say? We might say, well, just know it can go away at any time. Now, I don't think that our state legislature is going to do that. We have, over the last 7 years, gone from it being funded at about 49% to it being funded at 58%. So I think we are okay in that sense, but each year we apply for this grant. I put this image in here. It's the state board rule, and I just show it this way because I like to see this is official, and then I zoom in on it. And so this is our rule that we have to follow. And lately I've had a lot of CTAE directors reaching out to me saying, is there a list of do's and don'ts that we could have for this for extended day? And so I always just pull this definition up, this state board rule up, and I say, all right, so first it's for qualified career and technical education teachers, which means that they can only teach one class out of CTAE. So if we're on a 6 period day and we have a period of planning, then 4 of our 5 classes that we teach must be CTAE classes to be considered qualified for this grant. And then who work beyond the regular workday, so that's outside of our regular school hours, and not the hours that the students are there, but the hours that we're expected to be there. And then to provide students, so it is directly working with students with leadership and career development opportunities. So we have to look at both those components through our CTSOs, so through FIRST Robotics. And that's 5 criteria: that qualified CTE teacher beyond the regular workday with students, leadership and career development opportunities, for career through the career and technical organization. And if the answer is yes to all of those, then the activity counts. If there's one that's a no, then it doesn't count. So we have to make sure we're meeting every single bit of those criteria every time we are thinking about what counts towards that extended day grant. There are a lot of things that are important to remember with this grant. First, that it's local run. So again, at the State Department of Education, I am here to provide you with support, and we provide accountability measures, but it's really a local system. We're a local run state, and it's a local system that pulls your reports and makes the decisions as to if you would be on full extended day, half extended day, if you're meeting the requirements for accountability of the grant. So first you apply for the grant, and that typically happens in March to April. If you're brand new, you might have done it in the fall. And so first you apply, and then when March or April comes back around, we report what we did over the course of the year for the program of work. and then you apply again each year. So there's two accountability pieces to keep in mind. And the first is that monthly report where you're documenting your hours. And then the second is the program of work that shows what you've done throughout the year. And a lot of times I hear from our CTAE directors about advisors who don't meet the minimum points on that program of work report, on the annual report for program of work. And they say they plan for the bare minimum. So I always give this advice. One, teenagers are fickle. So remember that. It could be that it says you're going to attend this event you're going to attend Symposium with a minimum of 4 students. And you had 4 students in mind and you read students, and then one student didn't ask off work and the other student can't get on technology because they did something inappropriate with technology and their mom and daddy took it away, and another student's grandparent died and now you're down to 1. So we never want to plan for the bare minimum. We want to make sure that we are solidly meeting those minimum points on that program of work. But we got to build relationships too, not just with the students, but we've got to build relationships with our administrators. That's important for them to see that you're building, that they know what's going on. So if there's a reason you're not going to meet the minimum required points for some reason, then they are able to, they're not shocked by that at the end when you report it and you hit submit. And I'll talk a little more about that in a minute. Designed to reflect a well-balanced year-long program. So it shouldn't be that all we have to do for first, and I know I'm preaching the choir when I say this, but it shouldn't be that you can earn all your points because you start in January when your season starts. It is for year long, well-balanced program. So you'll come to Symposium or you'll come to Grits and you'll do a fall event and you'll have chapter meetings and you'll have community service projects, and so all of those things help you meet those minimum points on the program of work. It is designed to provide experiences for the students. So for those of you who have been on a program of work in the past, you will notice that all of the criteria are phrased in a new way. They are all phrased that it says you are supervising students who are doing this, supervising students at Symposium. You're supervising students. So it's designed to provide those experiences for the students. It is not designed for you to meet the minimums without having to travel. So you shouldn't be able to just stay at home and get all your points. But you need to travel to those regions, state, worlds, if you're making it to worlds, all of those things for that year, well-balanced year-long program. And make sure you're telling the truth when you're reporting those hours. Don't take shortcuts. I know that we all meet our hours well above and beyond. If you're not, that's what I'm here to support you. That's not just here at this workshop, but at any time you reach out to me via email or a phone call, and I can help you figure it out, because I know what it takes to do what you're doing, and there's no doubt in my mind that if you're going to these events, then you're getting the hours you need. Important things to remember still is that we are blessed in Georgia. So POW doesn't stand for prisoner of war. It does stand for program of work. And we are blessed in Georgia. Right now, our FY25, last year's extended day, was funded at $11.2 million. And that's big. We've got a lot of money that our legislators are giving to CTAE teachers to act as advisors and provide these opportunities for students outside of that regular workday. It's a lot of money. And so it makes sense for them to say, hey, let me pull those monthly reports and see what all they're doing before I make a decision to before I make a decision on whether or not I want to continue funding this, if I want to give it more money or if I want to cut from that and put that money somewhere else. And we don't ever want to leave a doubt in their mind. We want to make sure that we are documenting everything as that time spent with students beyond the regular school day. It is, if you don't meet your minimum, it's not the end of the world. There is a plan of improvement, and I always ask how many people have had to fill out a plan of improvement, and I myself have had to fill out a plan of improvement. So when I first, well, not when I first started teaching, but when this platform rolled out, we had 4 opportunities for professional development, and one was to attend Region Drive-In, one was to go to our division winter conference for GACTE, one was to go to the summer conference, and one was to go to new teacher conference. And I was not brand new, so that was not an option for me. So there were 3 options at 5 points apiece, and the minimum points you could earn for professional development was 15. And I had my son in December, and I was on maternity leave when the winter conference happened. So when I didn't get to check that box, it sent me to a plan of improvement. It said, "Why didn't you meet the minimum?" And in that box, I put, "I had a baby." And then it said, "What will you do differently?" And I said, "I'm not going to have a baby." And I hit submit. Was my administrator shocked? No, because of those relationships that I had built. They won't ever be shocked if there's something that you have had to check or couldn't check and you didn't meet those minimums. They should always know that you weren't going to meet the minimum before you submit it to them and they see it in an email. So start asking those questions if you're not sure. What are the expectations? When I tell you this is a local run grant, we distribute that funding and then they determine who is on what. Well, it varies across the state because it's funded 58%. Your district could say you're going to be on half extended day for 90 hours, which is approximately 30, well, it's exactly 30 minutes for every day you are contracted to work with students on a 180-day contract calendar. Or it's 180 hours, and that's for an hour for each day that you're contracted to work with students. And so you want to know what those expectations are. Well, some of our local school systems can't afford to match, or not match, but add the other 42% to make it 100% funded. So you may be doing 58% of those hours. So you have to communicate that and ask. Some of my districts are fully funded. Every teacher is on full extended day at 100%. So it just depends on where you are, and you've got to ask your CTAE administrator what that expectation is. And then what are the hours of your normal work day? Are you asked to come in? Teachers will say to me, "Well, I started meeting students at 6 and school starts at 8." And I say, "No, but what time are you supposed to be there?" And they go, "Oh, I have to be there at 7:30. Okay, well then that's an hour and a half of time that you can claim because you arrived and were meeting students at 6 a.m. So finding out what the hours of your normal work day are will be helpful. Recommendations for reporting are one, that the hours should be outside of that school day. 2, they should not be for anything that is expected duty or responsibility of all teachers. So we cannot document lesson planning, we can't document planning, period, unless you are planning during an officer meeting, like, and you have an officer present or you have members present. So you want to make sure that it's not that you were grading papers or that you were making a test or that you were lesson planning. And then they should reflect the annual report. So what I mean by that is if there's a certain percentage of points that are set aside for you to do state or do officer chapter meetings and officer meetings, but 90% of the time you're documenting that you were fundraising, and that doesn't reflect evenly. So making sure that when you're able to check a box over here on the annual report, you're able to document where you did those activities on your monthly reports. Um, if there's a description box, which we are moving to a new platform, and currently I'm not aware if there's going to be a description box, but if there is a description box, one of the things that I recommend for all of our CTAE directors when I talk to them is to ask you to put the time frame in. So you'll see in the italicized note below that it says 4 to 6 p.m. supervised students during chapter meeting at school. So that gives us that time frame. It tells us what we were doing, that students were present, and it tells us the location of where it happened. Having all of that documentation in there protects you. I always ask, do you know what CYA stands for? It means, can you articulate? Because if you can articulate, then your hiney is covered. So when we think about this, I had a supervisor who reached out to me and she said, this teacher put down that they sold chicken biscuits before school for 3 hours. Well, I said, well, what time do they have to report to school? And they said 7:30 in the morning. And I said, do you have them put their time in the description box? And they said no. And I said, do you think if you did, then they would have done that math and they would have said 4:30 a.m. Good Lord, I know I didn't leave my house that. Now it might have felt like 3 hours to that teacher, but once they really had to articulate what time it was that they did it, they go, oh, I didn't really do that for 3 hours, because there's no way I got to that Chick-fil-A and sat in the parking lot and waited an hour and a half for them to open. Or there's no way that I drove an hour and a half to the nearest Chick-fil-A. And some of you may live in small enough towns you actually would have to do that. But you're probably not selling those biscuits before school either, if that's the case. And then I always say divide your time to fulfill points. And again, this is a local system decision on how this is handled, but sometimes you are leaving at 6 o'clock in the morning to head to a qualifying event. And you get there and you compete, and by the time you get back to the hotel and you've put those students in their rooms and you've checked all the rooms and then it's time for you to go to sleep, it's been well more than 12 hours. And that's all the drop down in the past has allowed for us to select. So when you do that, if you would actually document like the time you're traveling as a chapter meeting, because that is your chapter traveling together, and then the next block of time is the actual competition. And then when you head to dinner, that might be chapter meeting. That's a social meeting for your chapter. And so those are the things that I mean by dividing your time to fulfill your points. So the new platform is going to reflect a series of drop-down menus. I haven't seen it yet. This is just what's been recommended. So some of you may actually be signed up for this same workshop on September 23rd in CTERN. If they do not announce the new platform as being open, I would recommend that you just unregister yourself, because I won't have anything new to say at that point. But if they announce that it's been rolled out and you want to see more about it, then you may want to come to that one. It was full at 300, but we expanded the Zoom business license or whatever through CTERN, and so they can let up to 500 in there now for that workshop. But it's going to be a drop down. So the way it'll work is the first one would be a drop down that shows operations and leadership, chapter, state, and national, or competitive events. That will be the 3 things that you choose from. And then once you select that, these next items, bulleted items, would be your next drop down. So if you chose operations and leadership, you would then get to choose from supervise chapter meeting or officer meeting, supervise an elected state or region officer, supervise students at fall, region, state, national leadership conference, rally, whatever it is you guys have got going on, your qualifiers, your state championships, your world championships, all of those, supervising today during the symposium. And then the next drop down with the chapter, state, and national would be, are you participating in CTAE month or advocacy events or community service? And a lot of times, if we're out asking for sponsorships for our programs, we're showing off what our programs are doing, and that's considered advocacy. So keep that in mind. And then competitive events. And you guys have a list of competitive events from the fall, from your qualifiers, from your state, and from worlds for you guys. And so you'll see that list under competitive events, and you'll get to select. It will still ask you the amount of hours that you spent on each of these activities, and it will ask you the number of contacts that you made. So you'll have to say that there were X number of students present at each of these things that you supervised them participating in. I'm going to stop right here and just see if there's any questions before I go on to show you some resources. Good. Okay. So the last thing that I want to make you aware of for Georgia CTSOs is our website. And I think this is important when it comes to the program of work for a couple of reasons. And I'm going to go ahead and pull that site up for you. Bring it over to my screen so you can see it. So this is the Georgia CTSO website. There are links to, all of our CTSOs on here. So I'm sure you all are familiar with going to GeorgiaFIRST website. But the big things that I want to draw your attention to first are the resources. Under resources is the membership chart. This is when your CTAE directors are going through a program review for all of the programs in the district to see if they meet size, scope, and quality to receive Perkins funding. This is important because they have to show 3 years of CTSO membership, and they have to show that they are that it's growing and your participation rates are growing and your teams are growing. So when you look through this, you'll see, and I can just zoom in like right here for FIRST Robotics. I'm sorry if I make you dizzy, but for FIRST Robotics, this school, like 3 years ago, 0, then they had 4, and then they had 6. And that may be because they are a part of a community team. And so then you'll see here's 15 this year, and then 2, and then 1. Well, this one went from 9 to 11 to 14. So that's a really good reference. And it's also a good reference if you are doing a recruiting activity with your officers to be able to ask, well, here was how many we had participate. What do we want to do? And what number do we want to reach? What goal do we want to reach for participation rates and membership rates to have on our team? The next thing is the accountability charts. These are sent to your CTAE directors, but they are available for you to see publicly. So the first question on your program of work always ask, did you affiliate or did you create your team by whatever date? So it might be October 1st. I think it's November 1st for you guys, or November 15th. So whatever that date is in the program of work is the first set of accountability charts. So it's called the initial membership. And that's as specified in the program of work. And all it is check marks, yes or no. So we can see that Carver Early College High School was a team by that deadline. Coretta Scott King was a part of a team or was a team by that deadline. And so that's what those check marks show on this one. Then the rest of your events, and I'm going to scroll through this, y'all. I create these when I'm living in my period of what I call spreadsheet heaven. And so I'm going to keep going to the next one. Could get to the W's. Okay, so the next one for you guys, Fall Leadership Rally, is comparable to GRITS. And this one shows where your POW says you should attend GRITS, you should attend fall, your symposium, you should attend state with a minimum of 4 students. And then there are different competitions that happen, and you have to check those competitions off. So what I do is I put together, and so for GRITS, you'll see that it says, okay, we had from Midtown, there were 5 adults that attended and 25 students that attended. And so they can see that. And there were no competitive events that you could check the box for on the program of work for GRITS. And it does the same thing for your fall leadership, which is the symposium, which we're at now. And then it does it again for state, which is your state championship. So then you'll have your numbers there that will show who participated and the number of events. So this should line up. If we're looking at the number of competitive events that you have to have checked in the program of work, then that should be the number of competitive events that are adding together to show you that that the state is saying the same thing that you're saying on your program of work. So that's why these are called accountability charts. And then lastly, I want you to see with the news, we have congressional district brag sheets. And this is just a resource for you that you could print and put on your principal's desk or put at your board members' seats for the next board meeting. I do these 3 times a year. The executive directors share with me the information after fall events. They share the information after state events, the spring event, and then they share the information again after nationals and world or international events. So these are the state ones because Monday is the deadline for them to share all of the nationals and worlds results with me. And what I do is they give me all the winners out there for CTSOs, and I put them over into one spreadsheet. And this particular set was over 7,000 lines of winners. And that does not mean each child's name is listed separately on a different line. If they're on a team, I put them all up together and on one line. And then I go and plug in the congressional district because we all know our elected officials love to hear about their own constituents, not necessarily everyone else. So it's exciting for them to see what's happening in their congressional district. And so let's see if we can find a good one here. Okay. That skips a lot. Trying to find one that I can show you. Here we go. Here's one. So this is where G3 Robotics from Midtown High School was the recipient of the Creativity Award. So I love to receive all of those winners so that I can show off what you guys are doing. And if there was a student that played a role in this, or and they were a part of that team, then I would say they should have this page printed to put in their own portfolio as well. So I think that's important that you know where to find these, but you do have to know what congressional district you're in. So that way you can pull it. And there are 14, and the lines were redrawn. So if you don't know from last year what your congressional district is, you can go to govtrack.us. You can go to Plural Policy, Find My Legislator. There are a lot of different resources out there that you can use to find out what your congressional district is. So minimize this. And just wanted you guys to see those good things because I love CTSOs. I love all that you do for our students across the state, all the opportunities you provide. I brag about FIRST Robotics. I love cooperation. I love the gracious professionalism, and I love being at your events, whether it's helping with zip ties to build the field, or judging, or just observing and walking through the pits and watching some of the matches. I adore what you teach our students and how you prepare them, and they have all the hands-on experiences through your organization. So thank you so much for having me.